Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. The next Wasteless World Talks are here with Bill, Kevin, and myself. Today's word, NOW, now. So I will start today with Bill. Bill, if you close your eyes and you hear the term now, what came first to your mind?
Everything. There is nothing but now. This relates to the conversation we had not too long ago about time. The past is just a memory, maybe a fabricated memory. I know that I remember it differently than my brothers and sisters do. And the future is just hopes or prognostications. It's nothing but something the mind has worked out. And if I'm looking for happiness, which I am, I can only get happiness now.
Great answer. Thanks a lot. Kevin, the same for you. What do you see in front of your eyes?
I see not a point in time. Everybody thinks that now is a point in time, but it's not. It's a length of time, depending upon your viewpoint. So if my wife says, I want this done now, she means immediately. Whereas if I tell my kids to do something now, they interpret it as something that has to be done sometime this century, if at all.
Great answers. We had today in the noontime discussion as well. It was very, very interesting. A lot of very interesting topics and perspectives. And one of them was that now is own if you turn the letters in a different direction. It's quite interesting because we own now. And as you says, Kevin, it can mean a lot of different things to different people. And the different perspective is there. Do you remember any now which is unforgettable for you?
Of course. I remember the phone call from my mother at 6 a.m. saying that my father had died. I remember where I was. I remember the couch that I was sitting on, and that was 40 years ago. I remember that. I remember the words that my mother-in-law spoke to me 10 months later when my wife's father died. And she said, it's her turn now. And I remember that it was the same couch. We had one phone. It was attached by a wire. You remember the old days. And I had come out. This was the middle of the night, and I had come out, and to prop myself up as I was sitting onto the couch, which had a fabric, it was covered in a fabric. I had been sewing the night before, and I had left the needle in there. And I remember put my hand down to settle myself as I sat down and reached for the phone. And I lifted my hand up, and there was a needle in there. And I'm trying to listen to the words. Yeah, I remember that. I will never forget that. There's probably another dozen or 2 dozen instances that I remember that I will never forget.
What about you, Kevin?
Actually, Bill just got me thinking that what if now isn't a moment? Well, it is a moment, but it's the moment we're born to the moment we die. That is now.
It was some of the answers has been that now to remember is the moment when we get to the world. You know, we do not remember that, but it was this now, which is unforgettable. For mothers, it was the birth of the child. For example, every mother says that in the room. There is a lot of things, and which we came to what was really interesting, because the group this time was very strong, and we covered all continents, all time zones. And what was interesting now for all of us was, without these time zones, nobody cared about the time zone. It was now. No matter whether we sit in the US or in Philippines or in Czech Republic or in Australia, there was the now which united us. That was interesting. So I think you are right. And if we are speaking about this, we came to the term, or I came to the term, heritage of now. Which heritage do you want to leave behind? What is the heritage of now which you would like to leave behind, to be in the memory like you describe it? Of course, it must not be our death. So it should be something different. What it will be, or what it is.
Is it possible that the heritage of now is it a fact? Is it an emotion? I think it's a feeling. That the heritage of now is a feeling that when I remember a point of time, it's really good or really sad or really something, but it's an emotion rather than it being facts and a description.
What do you think, Evan?
I was thinking that maybe another way to look at it is that it's the obligation of now. We only have now to make things, to do things. It has to be now. You know, if we're not doing something we should be doing, then we're wasting our now. We're not using our now.
I think the term wasting our now is very, very powerful, because it is exactly what we do if we just sit in the couch watching the screen, scrolling through the pictures, and our brain is switched off. And this is the way to waste our now.
Yeah, so it's interesting that now becomes like a rhythm or a band or a tool. It's something, it's not a moment, it's something we can use. It's something we can work with. It's something we can travel down. It's really, really interesting. It has every dimension to it.
It was interesting in the session was, for the first time, there was a visitor who joined us on stage, and she is publishing her first book just in few days from this event. She started to write it 25 years ago. And she joined the group just few days before this book will be published. It's quite interesting. So for some, of course, the heritage can be what they leave behind, but not a single one in the people who has been with me said the heritage of now will be my money, will be my fortune, will be my car, house, whatever. Not a single one.
So her heritage of now was 25 years in the making.
Yes.
And the three of us, heritage of now, talking about now, goes for an hour, but we have the three brains going in three sort of different directions, not necessarily different, but and that's the heritage of now, of this now.
I think it's the ability. Sorry, Kevin.
Then we get onto this idea of the future isn't forward because we always live in now. And so if we're always in now, are we going in any direction at all?
So I think we are coming back to a discussion which is more than 1.5 years, almost 1.5 years ago, when we spoke about the stone. Do you remember? We said the stone is there, was there, is there. What is the future? What is the now? What is the present? We have been talking about it. And I'm just now thinking the stone is just at, wow, that was a second ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
It's quite interesting. And I came to with the term today in the morning. It was the week when I did not have a term till really in the morning came to me, and it was so powerful conversation in the room. It's every time, I don't know whether you notice it, but every single time we meet, it's scale up. It's really more and more and more. It's so interesting in the way of understanding, in the depth of the moment, of the now, of the understanding. That's so fascinating for me.
But I think that as we follow clocks to the seconds, we invent now, so we don't need to have, now I have to go to work, now I have to do this, now I have to eat lunch. It's all set to the second. So we're actually constructing a framework of nows that is quite just unnecessary. Imagine how much freer we would be if we didn't create artificial nows.
I think we can say how free we are, because you, Bill, and me, we don't listen to clock. We simply do not. We know it exists, but I don't wear any. I don't look at it. I don't have an alarm clock. I simply don't. I feel the time. So it's feeling of now, I think. And I do remember, I don't know whether I mentioned it last time, I participated on a challenge to design a face of a clock, wristwatch. And I put there the planet, half was gray, half was blue, as it should be. And the hands show up, don't waste time. Unfortunately, it was not a winning entry, but I hope someone will make them.
Actually, guys, what is the opposite of time, of now?
Never.
Yes.
Good question. Good question.
I don't know whether it is never.
If you think, if you have to be born to have now, if you're not born, it's only never.
That's interesting. You know, now is a term which we use every day. It's used many times during the day. It's all the time. Do you have your time now, or can we do it now, or whatever? So it's so frequently used. But as frequently it is being used, as less we know about it, or we think about it.
Now, in most of the world, I think, in most of daily life for 8 billion people, now relates to the clock. It's a point in time. And nothing more for most people. I think most people are on a schedule, work schedule, kid schedule. I don't even think this question comes up for the vast majority of people because they're so busy with their schedule. Where would this question come up? While we're watching the football game? No. While we're tending the children, or no, it just doesn't come up.
No, because really now should mean consciousness. We're in conscious.
I have here great people to whom I speak about the wasteless, about speaking about nothing, so talk about nothing. And there's a lot of different things. And one of them is I will not call her coach, but she's teaching people how to generally don't concentrate and stay within, find out what is inside and so on. It's so interesting to talk with her all the time. And it is even more interesting that more and more people start to understand that the run for whatever is not good. And they start to look for something different. Not knowing that they have it inside is just enough to stop and look inside. But many people fear this moment, and the consciousness which you mentioned, I think it is exactly that understanding. So it is here. That's now.
But I think that scares people.
Do
it scares people into believing conspiracy theories, or if they don't have a schedule, if there's not something they need to be doing right now, then what are they supposed to do? And so that goes back to purpose. Why am I here? And that's a scary thought, because the answers are not simple. And we used to have, I've said this before, we used to have the church and the government that told us what we should be doing, what our responsibilities are, and they defined it. And those have become much weaker, and we accept them much less. So now we have to define our own now. Now the responsibility is on us to define our own now.
If you speak about it, if you say that, have you ever lost your now? Do you remember the moment when I said, well, I don't know what to do. It's end. It's nothing. It's blind, like whatever. Do you remember this moment?
I do.
I've tried the opposite, where I suddenly think, that's it, no more. Now is the time to do something different. With no clear idea what it is, but the old has to stop.
I remember, and this is getting way too personal, but the first days of my divorce, my whole purpose and reason for being just evaporated. And oh boy, I remember those days. So if you don't have a purpose, you don't have a now.
You know, I think it is very important discussion, because many people lose their now or lose their purpose at the moment of reaching some stage, like the go into pension or whatever. And some of them really don't have anything to do. I call it to have the meaning. They lose their meaning of their life. And you see immediately how in one day they get older for a year, because they have nothing to do. So I think we can say they lost now.
That resonates with me, Michael, because I started gearing down and started working part-time. And my wife said, you no longer have to work to put food on the table. And that was a shock to me. That was hit me on the head with a 2x4. And now my wife is contemplating the same thing. And so she's thinking, well, then what will be my purpose? Why do I get out of bed in the morning? And she's thinking about that. And the other thought I had was that when you go to a cocktail party, or you meet someone new, maybe at a networking event or something, and you stick out your hand and say, "Hi, my name is Bill. What do you do?" As if the job defines the person. I don't say that anymore. Now I say, "Hi, my name is Bill. What do you like to do?" I get completely different answers. Um, but we get sucked into defining our life by our job.
And the interesting thing is that nobody can do that anymore because there is no job security anymore. There's been so many technological events which make a lot of kids I was at school, they wanted to work in a bank because that was a job for life. Not anymore. And
That was me. That was me in a bank.
yeah. And others who went into the dockyard because there was always going to be ships to be repaired, all gone these days. And so, yeah, we can't define ourselves by what we do. It's much better to define ourselves about what we enjoy doing, because they're usually two completely different things.
I think that
But sorry, Mike.
I think that the way how Bill changed the question is exactly the way how we should ask in the future.
So I approach life very differently now than I did 5 or 10, certainly 20 years ago. And a lot of it is defined by, and I think I've said this before, Maria Kondo, the Japanese lady who helps you unclutter your closet. And so I look at a friend or an acquaintance who says, "Let's get together," and the question immediately pops to my mind: does he bring me joy? No? Well, there's your answer. And it's the same when you're choosing an apartment or you're what shall I do tonight? The question pops to mind. Does that bring me joy? And if it doesn't bring me joy, I don't do it. Now the challenge is I have hours, 24 hours every day that I need to fill up. So I need to find more things that bring me joy. And that's my challenge now.
And if you take this challenge and if you compare it with the development connected to AI, all the experts says AI is here to do the work for you. They say all the time the boring work or the repetitive tasks and so on. But even this boring and repetitive tasks are part of the work which you are doing. And time to time they help you to think. So when I clean the dishes, I have time to think. I have time to do something different. So for me, the repetitive task when I prepare the newsletter, part of the work is 3 times a day. I do exactly the same as Google Industry 5.0 in brackets came hundreds of answers. I go through, and my memory is trained to remember those which I already seen. And so I train the brain with this repetitive task, but we are being asked, hand it over to something, not someone, something, as AI. Completely wrong.
It's not totally wrong. There's value in that. There's value in that because it defines your purpose. It says that you are contributing. If I'm not contributing, I don't think I want to be on this world anymore. I need to contribute. And even the repetitive tasks are a way of contributing. So it's a multifaceted discussion. It's more than simply me do it or a machine do it. It's also who am I?
I was just on a discussion about AI, and they all the time repeated how good it is and so on. I find out what is the issue of such webinars. because they are 4 experts of AI and they will never say anything wrong about AI. So they never invited anybody who is, let's say, at least controversial or something like that. They do not, they don't like it. But what I realized, I have the opportunity to ask one question. So I asked it. It was the question about this fire, you know, the servant and master question. And they answer it, but not a single one answer it, in fact. So they go around. They said, yeah, we know about it and whatever. But then I have no opportunity to ask a second question, because they said, the AI will do everything for you. And I have the feeling I should ask, okay, how the bread will be done. You know, AI, in a way, how AI is standing as a standalone tool. It's a software. It's not a hardware tool. I know we can connect it to a robot and the robot has the hands, but they speak about AI without connecting it to the robot. So it's the same question when I ask the people who evangelize the virtual worlds, and I ask them all the time the same question. And for more than 10 years, I never, ever received an answer. I ask them, how tastes the digital bread? And they simply don't have the answer. Because no matter how good it will look like, how realistic it will look like, the brain will be fed by that, yes. The body will not.
It's interesting what you're saying about master and servants. I was talking once to an old famous Danish author. And he said, you know, writing is so easy because I've got 26 slaves on my keyboard to do all the work for me. And I thought it was such a nice idea. And you know, if you use AI to do your writing, if you can't write, that's one thing. But if you do write and you use AI, you're losing all the pleasure. So even the taste you will lose. And so you don't need any senses at all.
Just before we started, I don't know whether, I think I share this information. There is a event and their celebrities are reading letters, some letters from someone. They are on stage and reading letters. Just before this event, I have listened to 6 minutes and I will share it with you. Mr. Fishburne, I don't know his first name, an actor I think he is, read a letter from 1865. It's called The Letter to My Old Master, and it's written by a slave in the US. I will share it with you. It's so unbelievably powerful. What I am not happy about was the reaction of the audience. You know, it's live, so there is a live audience in the theater, but the content of the letter, it's unbelievable, unbelievable. So I put it even in the newsletter because it's so powerful, so interesting. And he read it, of course, great way. So I will share it.
That story to me is a lot like what you said 5 minutes ago of the experts on AI, and nobody says anything wrong about it. A lot of similarities. When you said that about the experts on AI, my first thought was they're being so dishonest to themselves because everything has pros and cons. Michael Rada has pros and cons, right? And Bill McClain does too. And ideas, everything from the driverless car to AI to mining the asteroids, has pros and cons to it. And if you don't recognize and discuss the pros and cons and the ethics both ways, and the stratification that it causes, if you don't do that, you're being dishonest. And when you have something like slavery, which is scary, the thought that we do that to other people, on the surface, it is scary that we could do that or that could have existed. And so we retreat into our tribal responses to slavery. So people don't like to hear smart slaves, or they don't like to hear people that we treated as slaves have feelings. That's way too hurtful to ourselves to admit that, but it's very dishonest if we do not. I think honesty needs to share the stage on these talks and other talks, and pros and cons of everything. Nothing is a virgin. Nothing is a virgin. There's
You
pros and
know,
cons to everything.
I was told many times that the talks which I do, the talks about nothing, our talks, Wasteless World talks, and other things which I record, that they are different. And all the time I'm thinking why they are different. And today, when we have the discussion about now, I realized that we don't sell anything. You, me, Kevin, we don't sell anything. We just talk. And this is so different to many of the podcasts where one or the other try to sell his or her or whatever. They are selling. Almost all of them are selling. No, but we don't. We do not. And I think that the honesty and now they should be connected.
Have you guys ever tried lunchclub.com? It's you connect for 45 minutes with someone that the algorithm thinks you'll have a good conversation with. And it's quite fantastic because everyone who's on there, if you don't like talking, it's not something you're going to join. And the few salesmen who do join are soon off again because it is just to exchange ideas and have a really interesting discussion. Suddenly you'll be talking to someone from Turkey and getting their perspective on whatever you want to talk about. It's wonderful. And again, it's the same thing. There is just no selling. Selling destroys these kind of things. It is just for the joy of meeting other people.
What is the name again, Kevin?
Lunchclub.com.
I was yesterday participating on an event organized by International Solid Waste Association, which is the biggest lobbyist of waste industry. Quite three interesting information about it. It was created in 1970, so 1 year before I was born. Do you know where it was the first global meetup in 1972? In which country? In Czech Republic. In Prague. Means in a socialist country, meet capitalists to discuss the future of the world. Very interesting. In 1971 was created the World Economic Forum. Few months after this was so, and after that few months, me was born because the World Economic Forum was created on 24th January 1971. So it's quite interesting to look at this now, but why I do mention, it was an open event. It was a webinar where three of these people who celebrate generally and support waste industry has been talking about their publication, which they prepared for United Nations Environmental Program, which is horrible. But they said the waste volume will only grow. There is no other way. But we are here. You are lucky. We are here. The waste industry is here to help. And it was a standard Zoom call, so I asked questions in a chat. But I was reminded to ask the question in the Q&A session. So I write as they spoke, I write my questions. After 28 minutes, they kick me out. The reason I ask questions. The great part. Few minutes before we started today, I receive a message on email that they thanks me. It was automatic. That they thanks me for participation in the event. It's so crazy. The world, so crazy.
That's exactly what the giants and the world do. And I think when you talk about the World Economic Forum and the meeting of the waste industry in Prague, and shortly after that, the world realized what a dangerous path it has just conceived, and it says, I'm going to send Michael Rada into that world. They so desperately need him.
And right now, as you said it, I do understand why I was born on December 24th, because I'm the present. So I am the present. Finally, after 53 years, I do understand why this day.
Okay, now get to work.
We'll try.
And of course, the waste industry, the last thing it wants to do is reduce waste because they won't have any industry left. So,
and the crazy part, they used twice in the latest report, which is called Global Waste Outlook 2024. They used twice the term Industry 5.0. You know, this is why I came to it, and so on and so on. So the old story. But I think it was quite interesting discussion about now. We have 3.5 minutes left, so still a lot of time. So if you take now and your perspective today, I repeat my question. What would you like to leave behind as your heritage of now? Kevin.
I would say that it wasn't wasted. I didn't waste my now.
Great heritage. And you, Bill?
I have to go back to joy and my ongoing search for joy in my life. And my joy is going to be different from other people's joy, and that will reflect my experiences and my values, I think. But my heritage hopefully will be people saying, he found some pieces of joy in that tough life. He found some pieces of joy.
You know, one of the speakers, which me co-host, which was on the noon event, was Anjan Banerjee. He's a doctor. He worked for many years in almost all continents and so on. And he said it's smile, which he would like to leave behind, because he's smiling. Even he said, even if there is a bad news for the patient, it has to be delivered with a smile, because it will partly relieve the pain. And I think there is so much to talk about. And I'm so happy that we did spend the time together today. We make now cross Atlantic, because you are in Denmark or Germany, Kevin, today? Denmark. So we are in Czech Republic, Denmark, and in the US. So it's really transatlantic, and it's transatlantic now, which is great. So I would like to thank you both for a great time. I would like to thank the audience for listening. And I wish everyone have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, be human, and value your now, every single second of your life. Thanks a lot, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.